We are now recording and live streaming our event. I want to welcome everyone to our virtual press conference featuring Anchorage area elected officials, advocates, and medical professionals who have come together today to speak out against the rollback of America's clean car standards during the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to thank the Alaska Center for sponsoring the event and for live streaming today's event on the Alaska Center's Facebook page. For our agenda today, we will have 2 to 3 minutes of formal remarks from each of our 5 speakers who are visible and audible via their video feed. For members of the media, once again, thanks for joining us. You're logged in as attendees, so you'll be muted during the formal remarks and your video is off, but you'll be able to see and listen to our speakers as they move through their formal remarks. At the end of the remarks stage, we will have a brief Q&A session where members of the media will be able to raise their hand or use the chat function to indicate if they have a question. And I'll facilitate that Q&A section so we can unmute members of the media so they can ask their questions. And with that, I want to introduce our first speaker, State Senator Bill Wielechowski, who will provide some background about the clean car standards. Senator, the microphone is yours.
Great, thank you. Welcome to our virtual press conference. I'm State Senator Bill Wielechowski. I represent East Anchorage and J-Bear. I want to make a few opening remarks to provide some context for this brief event. There's no silver bullet to solving air pollution or climate change. Rather, we should take several different actions targeting different sources of pollution. Occasionally, these actions present a tension between economic benefits and clean air. But today we're here to talk specifically about a solution that had provided a win-win solution. Before the Trump administration rolled them back, the clean car standards were an effective tool to combat climate change, reduce air pollution, and protect public health, and save Alaskans money at the pump. I, along with our other panelists here today, are speaking out against the rollback of America's clean car standards by the United States Environmental Protection Agency during the current public health and economic crisis. On March 31st, in the midst of the COVID-19 public health and economic crisis, EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler, along with the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, finalized the rollback of America's money-saving, pollution-cutting, clean car standards. This is the second phase of the rollback. The first phase of the rollback was initiated last fall with the federal government's attack on the Clean Air Act and the right of states to adopt stronger tailpipe pollution limits than those set by the federal government to protect the health of their citizens. The clean car standards provided public health protections and saved families money at the pump, all of which is even more critical in the midst of this unprecedented public health and economic crisis. The other speakers and I are going to elaborate on these points. I want to now introduce our next speaker, Anchorage Assembly Member Austin Quinn Davidson.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm Austin Quinn Davidson. I serve as the Vice Chair of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly. It's a beautiful sunny day in Anchorage and the air is clean. I have asthma, and last summer I stayed inside on day after sunny day when my lungs wouldn't let me join my family for rafting the Portage River or hiking in the Chugach, some of the things we love to do the most. Alaskans will remember the raging fires and smoke that came with them. The air quality was bad and it kept many of us from doing the things we love. We're lucky that we haven't had significant local fires this year, but we have other air challenges. This time coming from President Trump, for years has been working on rollbacks that weaken fuel economy standards, make the air dirtier, and as the senator said, cost us more at the pump. They also erode states' rights to protect their residents. That's right, President Trump is making it impossible for states to have fuel economy standards of their own. That doesn't sound very Alaskan to me. Locally, we've seen the impacts of dirty air, and we know that lessening standards leads to dirtier air and a warmer climate. We can't afford to have Alaskans unable to go outside, hunting, fishing, and recreating like we love to do. Luckily, the Anchorage Assembly is up for protecting Anchorage residents and all Alaskans because the air doesn't have borders. With the input of the community, we developed the Anchorage Climate Action Plan, a roadmap for leading the muni to reduce its contribution to climate change, prepare for extreme weather events, and save money. We've installed LED lights across the city, using about 40% less energy and saving $400,000 a year. We've worked to make transportation more efficient and inclusive across the city by upgrading the bus system and adopting a complete streets policy that makes the roads safer for pedestrians and cyclists. We've replaced our police SUVs with hybrids, reducing pollution and saving the city money. We've installed the largest rooftop solar array in Anchorage on top of the Egan Center, saving nearly $1 million in energy costs over the life of the project. And we're helping build the next generation of climate leaders by offering AK Energy Smart, a free K-12 STEM curriculum with hands-on Alaska-specific energy lessons. Anchorage is doing its part, but climate solutions take all of us. We need EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler to stand with local leaders, not to undermine our work and make our friends and neighbors less healthy. The president's rollback would strip all states of their authority to control vehicle pollution and protect the health of our residents. This repeal of states' rights undermines our ability to take care of ourselves. We urge our senators, Lisa Murkowski and Dan Sullivan, to support the EPA's strong clean car standards and our authority to improve public health for Alaskans. This is especially important during a global pandemic that affects the respiratory system. My wife left yesterday on a caribou hunt, and she texted me this morning from her inReach to say that she was leaving camp, headed out into the backcountry, committed to bringing home food for our family. She said it was a beautiful morning and the air was crisp and clean. Please, senators, urge President Trump to do the right thing and to protect Alaskans' way of life. Next, it's my honor to introduce Kendra Kloster, the Executive Director of Native Peoples Action. Kendra?
Hi, great to be here today with all of you. Thank you, Austin. It's a good segue into a few comments that I have. As mentioned, I work for Native Peoples Action. We work to uplift and protect Alaska Native people and our traditional way of life. With the ongoing threats of climate change and just the rapid amounts of changings that are happening to our lands and our waters, we need to work together to ensure we have a more sustainable and just economy. As caretakers of these lands and waters, we need to allow our homelands to heal and return to balance. We need to uplift Indigenous knowledge and worldviews through building localized solutions, working with Indigenous peoples and communities for some action-forward planning for the next 10,000 years. We know climate change is happening. We see it every day. I hear stories. Even this morning, I had a long conversation with friends in Southeast where we have such bad fish returns. We're struggling to figure out how to make boat payments and how to feed our families. Rolling back pollution standards is not how we take care of our planet, and it's not how we take care of our people. We know that transportation is one of the largest industries that's impacting our climate pollution. What you may not realize, by the year 2040, this rollback will mean an additional 1.5 billion metric tons of climate pollution. This amount is equivalent to the total pollution from 68 coal plants operating for 5 years. 142 billion more gallons of additional gasoline will be used, and Americans will pay 244 billion more at the gas pump. This continued exploitation of our non-renewable resources does not allow for a vision for Alaska or for the country. We need to ensure we are protecting our waters, our lands, and our people. And by doing this, we need to come together to be addressing climate change. It is not the time to be rolling back standards. It's quite the opposite. We need to be doing more to protecting our climate. We need to do more to protect our people. And I hope that we can do more. And I'm urging our people, our legislators from across the board, and to come together to do what we can to implement policies that are going to be protecting our lands, our waters, and our people. We need to be making plans for the next 10,000 years so we can ensure that we have a beautiful globe and a beautiful Alaska. And next, I'm going to pass it over to my good friend, Jenny Marie Stryker, the Political Director over at the Alaska Center.
Thank you, Kendra. Hi, everybody. My name is Jenny Marie Stryker, and I'm the Political and Campaigns Director for the Alaska Center, an organization that works to engage, empower, and elect Alaskans to stand up for our clean air and water, healthy communities, and a strong democracy. I'm so thrilled that I can be here today and partner with so many wonderful speakers to make this event happen. Alaskans across the state and in Anchorage know that climate change presents an existential threat to our way of life. From youth climate strikes across the nation and the world, to climate action plans on the local and state level, to local solutions, Alaskans need partners on the federal level to address this crisis, not accelerate it. The first step in the 2018 Alaska Climate Action Plan is to strengthen community resilience and sustainability, which means collaboration and action between state, local, and regional entities and municipal and tribal governments. We're asking for a partner on the federal level. The Trump administration's rollback of clean car and fuel economy standards is misguided. It will result in, as Kendra mentioned, an additional 2.2 billion metric tons of global warming emissions by 2040. That means additional respiratory and cardiovascular stresses on vulnerable populations. And it means by 2040 alone, consumers are going to spend an additional $55 billion at the pump. While some may say that Alaskans should appreciate this rollback given our state's strong reliance on petroleum revenue, we know that rolling safeguards back will accelerate the economic, social, and cultural crisis that climate change is causing, cost the state billions of dollars more in infrastructure damage and wildfire costs that could ever be paid for through our waning oil revenues. Reversing fuel economy standards as we experience the hottest years ever recorded on Earth, and as we are in the middle of a national pandemic accelerated by poor leadership, is an obviously strange move. Moreover, it is sad and political and the wrong thing for this administration to do. It must be reversed. Trump and the EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler should be focused on protecting public health now and in the long term. Instead, they're doing big oil's bidding by attacking clean air standards that we're working to keep climate pollution in check, protecting our health and saving drivers money at the pump. Senator Murkowski has said she understands the climate crisis. It's time for her and Senator Sullivan to speak up against these needless political rollbacks. Now, I am pleased to introduce Ms. Kimberly Sloan, who is a registered nurse here in Alaska. Kimberly, take it away.
Hey, Kimberly.
I think you're on mute, Kimberly.
Kimberly, your line is muted.
Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me?
Go ahead, Kimberly. We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments today. My name is Kimberly Sloan. I'm a registered nurse in Wasilla, Alaska. I wanted to speak to you today about the likely rollback if we do nothing of the Clean Car Standards by EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler. The Clean Car Standards rule is what drives automakers to produce fuel-efficient cars and trucks. Rolling back this rule will allow automakers to make dirtier vehicles that will pollute the air and harm our health. Alaskans deserve clean air. We don't need more tailpipe pollution. The rollback would also disrupt one of the most effective policies we have in place to combat climate change. And combating climate change is vital to the health of all Alaskans. Last summer, I had a patient, upon learning of their discharge home, state, "If you send me home, I will die." Sadly, that's not hyperbole. Last summer, if you recall, it was 90 degrees outside. There was an extreme drought. There were over 200 wildfires burning around the state. Air quality was poor. and salmon were dying in our streams. And I was supposed to discharge a patient home who had a respiratory illness, and to a home that had no air conditioning, no fan, and no blinds. And we know homes have been built in Alaska to trap heat. And so I imagine the inside of that house was like a greenhouse. So social services had to be contacted, and other arrangements had to be made for this patient. But sadly, as human behavior continues to heat up the world, more people will die from heat, including people living in cooler climates where adaptation to heat, like air conditioning, is minimal. Tailpipe pollution, though, it doesn't just make climate change worse. According to a recent Harvard University study, air pollution is linked to higher COVID-19 death rates. Air pollution, what it does is it causes inflammation, which damages the heart and the lungs. We know patients with severe COVID-19 are twice as likely to have had pre-existing respiratory diseases and 3 times as likely to have had pre-existing cardiovascular diseases. And here in Alaska, over 13,000 children and 50,000 adults suffer from asthma. We shouldn't be throwing out the safeguards that protect them. Look, rolling back clean car standards during a global pandemic that's caused by a respiratory virus, when the Department of Defense has declared climate change a national security threat, is irresponsible and an abandonment of science and reason. We need our leaders to prioritize protecting the people's health. I really want to urge everyone to call Senator Murkowski and ask her to support EPA's strong clean car standards. Your health or the health of someone you love may depend on it. Thank you. And now I'd like to reintroduce State Senator Bill Walikowski.
Thank you. Alaska is ground zero for climate change. We literally have communities, villages falling into the ocean. We have tundra that is melting and releasing methane gases. And not only is this good for our climate, but it also is good for our economy and good for jobs. The clean car standards have spurred investment in the United States automotive industry. These standards have created 288,000 jobs across the country associated with clean vehicle technologies. Alaska has some of the highest gasoline prices in the United States. This is something that I've heard from constituents for many years and have fought to try to lower those prices. To date, these efficiency standards have saved Alaskans $90 million. And over the next 10 years, the estimates are that the average Alaskan household will save $4,000 if these standards were to remain in place. This is extra money that I know my constituents could use, I know all Alaskans could use, and would certainly be good for our economy and help create even more jobs here in Alaska as that money cycles through the economy. This rollback is just another example of government working for big industry and special interests instead of working for the people. And when people had the opportunity to weigh in on this rollback, the public was overwhelmingly opposed to it. Alaskans, as we've heard, are very wary anytime the federal government tries to step in and encroach on states' rights. And we have always stood against these encroachments. This is a clear attack on states' rights and the authority of states to set their own standards and take away the ability of our legislature to take our own actions to provide for efficiency, improve air quality, and address climate change. Alaskans understand our unique challenges in climate better than the federal government does. Yet this rollback would take away our legislature's ability to act and could set a dangerous precedent that weakens our role in other legislative actions in the future. And so I want to join the others in urging our congressional delegation to take a stand to stand up and support the EPA's strong clean car standards and to be vocal in their opposition to this action. These standards promote economic opportunity. They save Alaskan families money at the pump. They'll create jobs and give our state and legislature the authority to take action. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and thanks to all of our speakers. Really appreciate the remarks. That marks the end of the formal remark portion of our event, and we now have a few minutes for Q&A. For members of the media, if you have a question, you can use the raise your hand function to indicate you have a question, or you can also type into the chat box that you would like to ask a question, or you can type your question directly into the chat box if you like, either way. And then I can work our way through the question requests one at a time. I'll be happy to unmute your line so that you can ask the speaker or speakers the question. And then please, when you're unmuted, just state your name, media outlet that you're with, and if you have a specific panelist that you would like to direct your question to. All right, so we'll give it a minute here. Okay, let's go to Judith Jensen. Judith, if you are, you can unmute your line and you can ask your question. Judith, if you're with us, you just have to unmute your line on your end.
Yeah, I am with us. I'm sorry, I don't have a question. I'm not sure how I'm in the queue.
Oh, no worry. Thanks, Judith. All right. Any other questions from our members of the media? Quiet group today. We'll give it just another second. All right, I'm going to turn back to the panelists if you have any final remarks. Otherwise, we can wrap up here. So I'll open the floor to the panelists before we say goodbye.
I don't have anything to add. I just want to, again, urge the congressional delegation to stand up and speak out against this action. I think this is important for Alaskans. I think it's going to save Alaskans money. It's going to help keep our air clean and create jobs.
Terrific. Senator, thank you so much. I want to thank all of our panelists for this terrific event. I want to thank the Alaska Center for hosting the event and for live streaming the event, and appreciate everyone's time and committed support for the Clean Car Standards. I should note that the video recording of this event will be available on the Alaska Center Facebook page. A link to that video will also be sent out in the press release within the next 75 minutes or so. If you have any follow-up questions or requests for speaker interviews, you can contact Ben Stacer, whose contact information is on the press advisory that was sent out. Again, thank you so much. Appreciate everyone's support for the Clean Car Standards, and have a great day. And we will wrap up.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
all.
you.